Quasi here. In today's interview, you're going to encounter Z, who has completely changed ever since they got started with us. Backstory: Z worked in public school as a speech pathologist and loved the kids, hated the job, and didn't know what business to transition out to. Really, like after working with us, got clarity on the coaching business they wanted to pursue, and now has made more in half a year of doing that than they ever made working in public school. And this all came as a result of surrender. So I really want you to pay attention to the surrender piece and learning how to give up, even despite adversity, because they were in $40,000 worth of debt and they still decided to take action on their future, and look where we are right now. So I really hope you enjoy this. So please pay attention to this. There's some golden nuggets in here.
Tell me a little bit more how you felt coming into the program. So I want you to tell me a little bit about how Z 1.0 was
Mm.
when you were coming into this program, how you were feeling, were emotions running high? How was that like?
Yeah, so it was a really wild time in December because I had in so like a year and a few months ago, June,
Hmm.
I had started my business and I had taken a temporary leave from my school job. I was working in public schools as a speech
Hmm.
pathologist, and I just had this like miraculous opportunity fall into my lap after being on a podcast. 47 people called me to work with me one-on-one, and I was like,
Wow.
I guess I will start a private practice. Like, what's
Yeah.
happening? So I had taken like a temporary leave and I had been working for a couple of months and it had been going so well. And I was really like authentically shocked because for the like 12 years that I had been working in public schools, I had loved my students, but I had hated my work. Like
Hmm.
I had just felt totally depleted and I had been trying to get out of speech pathology for like basically before I even graduated from grad school. Like
Yeah.
I knew it was wrong the whole time, but I
Yeah.
really thought it was the only way I could make money. And after I got divorced like 8 years ago, I really felt like I was trapped. Like I just could work at public schools because that was the only job I could get and I was a single parent,
Mhm.
a
So
lot
you were
of
like
limiting.
limited,
Oh my gosh.
black
Yeah.
and white
So
thinking. Yeah.
much, so much. And I had tried several other like certifications, or like I tried to become an insurance like salesperson. I like tried this thing called surplus funds, which is like a wild. I paid $7,000 to learn how to do that and like lost money and like ended up with this guy trying to do like major fraud with me. Anyways, I have tried and tried is the point.
Mhm.
And I right before the thing happened with the podcast, I had said, like, I'm giving up. I had told my therapist,
Yeah.
I'm not trying anymore. I'm just going to be a speech
Hmm.
pathologist at public schools. I'm just going to make the best of it. I'm just going to try and be as happy as I can, like knowing that I'm hate my job, right?
Yeah.
And then the thing happened, and I was like, hold on, like maybe there is something that is possible here. And I
Yeah.
started realizing that had a lot of energy and I was like really enjoying. I was worried that my one-on-one work would be really draining, but
Hmm.
I was really enjoying it. Like I started a podcast, I started a YouTube channel, like I was having a lot of fun. And I started thinking maybe my life is not quite so stuck.
Yeah.
And I was really able to recognize actually in therapy, I do parts work,
Hmm.
where you like look at different parts of yourself and your history and how they might be like showing up to interfere with some of your goals. And I
Yeah.
realized that I had a really big part that was very against money and wealth,
Hmm.
especially as like a single assigned female at birth person. Like I had
Hmm.
been taught by my Christian upbringing that it was dangerous for like a woman to be alone and like having money and having a
Yeah.
business. That like I needed to be
It was
struggling.
scary.
Yeah, it was like dangerous, like threatening to God, right? So this
Hmm.
part, even though I didn't believe that now, like this
Yeah.
part was like totally like, no, you can't make money, that's dangerous. So I recognized that as something that I needed to work on. And I had a distaste for wealthy people. Like all the people
Yeah.
on YouTube who are like, get a Porsche and like have a private jet or whatever. I
Yeah.
always was like, ew, like I'm never gonna be like that. So I
Yeah.
realized that that was a block and I wanted to work on it because I could
Hmm.
also see that it didn't make sense. Like there
Hmm.
wasn't like anything inherently nasty about like having money.
Exactly.
So I came across Quasi and I had been listening to like Bob Proctor and like Neville Goddard and like a couple other things, but I hadn't found someone who was like quite as spiritually like interested, invested. And it
Yeah.
was like all about building wealth, which I also was like,
Hmm.
I like even had an interview with someone from Bob Proctor's program and they were like, so hardcore, like, you're gonna make $100,000 million and like all this stuff. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It just didn't resonate with you.
so I was looking and looking, and then I came across Quasi, and I was like, okay, this person like also has read I Am That, like has also, recognizes that nothing actually is real and nothing matters. And like that felt really like a helpful bridge for me.
Yeah.
And so I had decided to go for it in like November. And I
Yeah.
had been trying to buy a house before that. So I had been trying to buy a condo actually, because I thought like I'm a single parent, like I can only live in a condo, right?
Hmm.
And I had not been able to I had put offers and offers, always like cash investors were like winning out over me and I was getting discouraged. So I
Hmm.
had given up on that too. And then in November, I talked to someone from Reality Mastery and was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in December. And
Yeah.
then my realtor called in November and was like, there's this little, like, it's a garage, right? 100-year-old garage that's in your price range and it's
Hmm.
gutted. And like, you could afford it and you could fix it up and it could be great. And I was like, really? What? Okay. So I like looked at it. I had no idea what I was doing. Her friend was a contractor and he was like, yeah, I can make it happen. I can get you in by January, like for sure. Like we can fix it up. It's gonna be great. So I was like, okay. So I did it.
Hmm.
And then I was like, I don't know if I should still spend on this
Yeah.
reality mastery thing because I'm just buying a house. But I was very swept up in like, everything's working out. Like everything's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Abundance, at the beginning of December. And then by December 14th, I had a like realization that this contractor had been working on the house for 6 weeks at that point,
Yeah. I
and
remember.
nothing had happened.
I
And I was
remember
like,
that.
oh my gosh. And I had given him $40,000. And I was like, okay, like something's wrong and I have to do something about it, or this guy is maybe never going to finish the house. Like we had given notice. We had to be out of our place by the end of December, and it was December
Hmm.
14th, and there were no walls, no electric, no plumbing, no heating, like nothing. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it was a really scary time to start the program because I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
the first Q&A call that I got on with Quasi. I was like, I don't know what to fucking tell you, man. Like, if it's the mirror principle, then I'm like such a problem. I don't know because everything's going wrong. And that's where all the guilt was. Because I
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
interpreting mirror principle as like, if something looks wrong in your life, then it means you're doing or being something wrong, which was so
Hmm.
painful to me because I
Yeah.
didn't understand at that point, like, that challenges or obstacles are actually not like you're a bad person or you're being bad or your mindset is bad. They're just a part of the like algorithm.
Yeah. To
But
teach you things.
yeah. And I just definitely felt like I had fucked up. It was my fault.
Yeah.
And I was terrified because the bank was like, yeah, you're going to lose the house. I had a new contractor come out to try to look at it and they were like, you need to give up. You're not going to be able to do this. And the existing contractor was like, I'm going to put a lien on the house and sue you and like bankrupt you. And I was so
Yeah.
scared and I had no place to
So
live.
scared.
Oh my gosh. And I was like freaking out, honestly. So that first month was crazy because I was like trying to listen to these videos and my whole life is literally crumbling.
Falling apart.
Yeah. And Quasi's like so calm, cool, collected as always, and is like, yeah, you're good. Like, it's fine. Why are you concerned?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
No,
um,
and just going through all this like anxious situation. I remember actually when you came in, the whole thing was about the house, and like you were feeling anxious about like how to even navigate it. You were asking questions. And something I really like about you, that you were, since the beginning, even with this whole anxious situation, you were always proactive. You joined the Q&As, you joined the social calls, you were always there and ready to take action, which is something that is such a good asset to have as a person. I completely feel like that is. And I feel like that's one of the reasons that you've come to this point that you are at right now, where you've actually been able to change. Because I really just, something about you is that you take situations, at least now, maybe not before, but at least now you take situations and you completely flip them around, and you're able to kind of see where it's a blessing in disguise, how it was able to teach you things, and use them kind of like as confirmations, as we teach inside the program, to get you to that next level as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
I feel
been
like,
wild. It definitely, I will say one of my like core competencies is I am an excellent student. So like
yeah,
if
no,
you
you
give
are.
me like I am going to do it like 2000%. So I started immediately going through the modules. Like I did
Mhm.
every worksheet. I rearranged my client schedule so that I could make every Q&A and every social call. I
Yeah,
forced myself to ask questions even though I was terrified, and
yeah,
often would like ask my question and then Quasi would be like, "What are you asking?" And I was so intimidated. But I forced myself every single time to like be the first person to ask a question, because it was just like my goal was to ask a question.
exactly.
And I will say, like, the social calls with you, because you are phenomenal, was a
Thank you.
huge, huge, huge influence in my experience. But getting an accountability partner, which Quasi recommends, like in the first week, I think, I can't
Hmm.
remember.
First week, yeah.
I went ahead and did that, and that has been like I meet regularly with my accountability partner still, and like our relationship is so significant in my life now, and having someone who is following the same principles and who is willing to be like, "Hey, are you doing this? Like, hey, you said you wanted to do A, B, or C," or like, "Hey, if
Yeah,
you're not, like, what's going on? Do you want to talk it through?" Like having that
exactly.
consistency and that person who is committed to me, because we've grown to love each other, but like the commitment started with like, we're gonna look at these values together and we're gonna make sure that we encourage each other and staying aligned. And I
Hmm.
doubt I would have finished all the modules if I had not had that. Somebody to say like, "Hey, you said you were going to finish this worksheet," or "Hey, we're going to do this exercise together." So that has been phenomenal. Yeah, I definitely threw myself completely into it. And I think it took me several months to get over
Yeah,
the idea that things that look wrong are not indications that I'm wrong.
exactly.
That was, I think, a huge hang up for me. And Quasi says, if not this, then something better.
Something better.
And
Yeah.
in the beginning, I misinterpreted that to think the something better is a thing that looks good from
Yeah.
like a cultural, stereotypical, like good, bad,
Hmm.
right, wrong, success, failure type of
Yeah. Type of
perspective.
thing. Yeah.
But I've realized now that the something better often can look like a disaster.
Hmm.
And that's the like path of least resistance, is that sometimes, for whatever reason, on a universal scale that I am not going to understand, nor do I need to understand. And it's probably great that I don't understand, because I would do a poor job if I was in charge of it, right? That
Hmm.
sometimes things like this contractor totally not doing the work and not giving back the $40,000 was the better route to what
Yeah.
I was meant to experience in this lifetime, than if he had done his work perfectly and we had been able to move in January.
Yeah.
And so to like, that is what I feel like my current phase is to continue to receive like obstacles
Hmm.
as like, oh, this is the something better. The
Yeah.
obstacle is the something better. And I might never know why. Like I
Yeah.
feel really fortunate because I already have seen the why for the contractor thing. Like
Yeah.
it humbled me enough that I reached out to my parents, who I hadn't really been open with in like a lot of years.
Yeah.
And we ended up like reconnecting through my being willing to say, I need help.
Yeah.
And they came to visit in June, which they haven't in 20 years. And I realized that like
Wow.
I was telling the story like they never came to visit in 20 years. And I realize now like I never invited them in 20 years.
So it
And
allowed you that opportunity to actually have that space to open up and for them to come in.
yeah. And we had a beautiful weekend together, which is like not something that was in the stars for us, like
Yeah.
according to the past 20 years of like really complicated relationship. So yeah, that was my something better. Like I definitely would have paid more than $40,000 for
To
that.
have that.
Yeah.
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 No,
So
absolutely. So with this transition that you're talking about to me right now, like going into that state of you're like looking at things as superficial, you don't really understand where it's coming from, to now being able to just change your perspective, what do you feel like inside the program or the calls or the accountability buddies? What was that moment that actually was like breakthrough that you were like, hey, I can change these things and I have this new perspective change? Like what inside the program helped you with that?
So I would say there wasn't so much of like a breakthrough moment, just continuing to show up, continuing to immerse myself in the material and continuing to meet with my accountability partner and interact with
Yeah.
everyone. Like slowly but surely, I started to realize that I wasn't understanding the something better, that I
Yeah.
wasn't understanding obstacles or challenges.
Hmm.
um that was I think that is sort of what's continuing to happen for me. But I will say that the one moment that feels like the most significant was understanding the concept of the path of least resistance,
Yeah.
which the piece that I wasn't like, I was always a person who was like, okay, you can learn from something, like you can learn from
Yeah.
anything. My podcast is called Skool. Like I believe that we're learning lessons, whatever. But I hadn't really understood the idea of faith in the context of like, I'm not in charge. I don't know what's going on. There's something bigger at work. And if I, from my limited perspective, am like, yeah, this was wrong that this contractor didn't follow through. Like, this is bad. I wasn't manifesting correctly. I'm bad. He's bad. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
like
Just
in
black and white.
total
Yeah.
judgment. Like, that is such a limited perspective because I don't know if, like, okay, let's say it could have even not had anything to do with me or the contractor. Like, maybe it was just that if we had moved in January, like I would have pulled out one day and like hit a kid or something. We don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like we don't know
It's a
how
limited
this
perspective.
whole tapestry is woven together and all the timelines and all the realities and all of the like different components. And why should I be such a brat that I'm like not willing to play a role in the universal experience of everyone? Like, why am I not willing to play my part and experience some less than preferred situations in order
Yeah.
to contribute to some grander scheme plan that I'm never going to understand? Like, I just realized that that's pretty bratty.
Yeah. No, and that's a huge perspective change to make. So, in the context of faith and trust, what do you think was the thing that moved the needle for you to actually let go?
I think the biggest piece is just continuing to come back to the idea that I don't understand.
Yeah.
So just, I think maybe that's humility, right? That is like, if we're going to believe in a higher plan or a higher power, then it means we're not it,
Yeah.
right? So it's that, like, I think a lot of us have been, trained to think like it's all up to you. Like, if
Hmm.
you're not working hard enough, if you're not trying hard enough, if you're not manifesting hard enough, then
Yeah.
that's why you don't have a mansion and, the partner of your dreams and like whatever. And I think that's the other shift, is that I have realized that like what I actually want and what I think most people are actually seeking when they say they want a mansion or a Ferrari or whatever is peace. Like
Yeah.
peace in their heart, peace in their mind. And the idea that that the absence of suffering or like the fear of suffering is the thing that I think makes life hard.
Yeah.
We think the mansion will mean we have less suffering about our housing stability. We
Yeah.
think the partner will mean we'll have less suffering about like, does anybody love me? You
Mm-hmm.
know, am I lonely or worthy of love? So all of it is coming from this fear of suffering and this like need to protect yourself from suffering.
Yeah.
And I was actually listening to a beautiful talk with Sadhguru last night um, about like suffering is a part of this
Mm-hmm.
experience on
Yeah.
this planet. Like you could be, you know, Jeff Bezos and you could get cancer or your loved one could die or you could lose your entire business, right? Like
Yeah.
suffering is not it's inevitable, it's a part of it, but like maybe not so much suffering, but pain, like pain and
Mm-hmm.
loss. Pain and loss are part of this program, this game that we're
Yeah.
playing, pain and loss. And when we're like, oh, about pain and loss, and pain and loss is bad and I need to avoid it. And if I'm experiencing it, then I'm in trouble or I'm wrong or someone else is wrong.
Yeah.
That is what creates the suffering. And so I feel like not only like this, another side effect of going through this program is that I feel way more comfortable with wealth. Like, and that I think has opened me up to like now I make more money, like now I
Yeah.
charge more money, like now I
They're
go do,
comfortable with that now. Because I remember
yeah,
before you were uncomfortable with actually doing that. And now I feel like the key thing here and the takeaway from what I'm getting from you is getting the awareness that it's okay to do that because you're doing a disservice to yourself if you don't do that to other people. If you don't charge the amount that you are valued as to other people. Do you think
yeah.
that that's something that changed in you?
Yeah, I definitely realized, I mean, I've talked a lot about it in the group that one of like something I now truly believe is that we are here to share something specific with the planet. And
Yeah.
if we're like, I can't do that because then I'm being like full of myself or then I'm charging people money or then I who am I to start a YouTube channel?
Yeah,
And
and I
it's
remember
like,
that was that in our first coaching calls, you would tell me that those were the thoughts that were badgering your mind so much. And I see that completely has shifted right
yeah.
now.
Because now I'm like, you know what? Like, I am literally inspired, like breathed into by divinity with this
Yeah,
specific idea. And even if it's only because that's how, like, the next half hour of my life could be best spent is to like record myself talking about periods. That was my most recent video that I made, like talking about
yeah,
periods and how it affects people's mental health. I have never like I would never have made that video. It seemed a little silly, but I was like, I need to make this. I just want to make I'm like super tired. The house is not packed. These are moments when you know it's an actual inspiration. There's
it's
like
natural. Yeah,
no good reason to make it and you're like I just have to sit here in the dark and make this thing when I'm like deliriously tired. In the first day it was like 400 views and like
hmm,
15 comments. I've never had such a response to a single video. So it was clearly it was not me. Divinity wanted that to be in the world and
yeah,
asked me to be open to facilitating that. And if I hadn't done it, someone else would have been inspired to do it. So it's this
exactly.
like, why should I limit divinity and not express these things? These people want to pay me this money. Let them go ahead. If they decide they don't want to pay me that money anymore, bless them, like great.
Yeah,
I think it's the also the like decreasing the importance on everything.
every single thing. Yeah, and not taking
Everything.
life too seriously.
Yes. It's like, okay, because now I truly can say, like, let's say all of a sudden every client went away and I had to go back to public schools, like, I'm sure I'd be fine. It wouldn't bother
Exactly.
me. Like, I'd be like, all right, plenty good. Like, I'll just go do this now. Like, I am learning that, like, I'm not scared of the problems as much because I don't take them to mean that I'm wrong or someone else is wrong. And that
Yeah.
blame and shame is what was actually eating me up, not the problems.
Yeah. I looked at your initial application and I was like, this
I
is
want to
not
see
Z.
that.
This
I
is
want to
not
see
Z
it.
at all. Yeah, it was like I'm trying to move on from one-on-one to the digital space, and I'm like a little conflicted. And then you were actually messaging that you were anxious about it. Coaching slots were coming in. You didn't really know what to do. And as far as the coaching business right now, you've done it much more effortlessly, right?
Yeah,
You have your own school group.
I do.
I'm part of it.
You're a part of it. It's so fun. Yeah, the school thing was like a wacky thing because when did that start? Like March, maybe I
Yeah,
found out about like, well, I had been using Skool for reality
yeah.
mastery and I had been like top of the leaderboards every time and
You're
was
still
like,
top of the leaderboards always.
I'm like,
Top.
what is happening? Like, what is it that I'm doing? Because I wasn't putting effort into that. I was totally
Yeah,
effortless and totally just sincere, and I was enjoying myself and having fun. And I was like, how could I use this? And I didn't realize Skool was like a whole thing. I thought it was just
yeah.
like reality mastery for some reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then my friend was like, I was like researching Substack and like researching Twitter because I was like, there's something about the writing that I like. And
Hmm.
then a friend was like, no, Skool's like a major thing and they have like school games and all this stuff. So I jumped into Skool and within 7 days on the Skool community, I had gotten up to like level 7 on the general Skool community, which has 100,000 people on it.
Yeah.
And a few weeks ago, I was #1 on the leaderboards in the whole Skool community. Like, I'm like, what is happening? What is
That
this?
I feel like that's so insane, and just because you followed your own path of what you like to do. Talk to people, enjoy, like you I don't think you were actually thinking about, oh, I'm number one, I'm number two, I'm number three.
I
It's
was
just like you were
not.
you were just going into it. And then I'm like, Z is always top of the leaderboard all the time. But it's because you're following your path, you're following your joy.
I'm just having fun. And that was what another thing I was talking to my accountability partner with yesterday. I was like, literally, Skool is the best example of decreasing importance and just having fun because I like just completely effortlessly have been super successful on
Yeah,
Skool and I had no importance on it. Like
yeah,
could not matter less, had no bearings on my life, like no financial repercussions because you don't like make school from or make money from interacting on Skool. I mean, kind of you do because then people find out about your group or whatever. But
yeah,
my group, I had tried years ago to try to start a community for people to interact, and I like got my one friend like joined.
yeah. Like
I put so much effort into it for months. I worked so hard. I made like endless posts and information and nothing happened. And now, like, I just started with my current clients, and
mhm.
it's like there's more than 100 like posts and activity every day. Like, I can barely keep up with it, and people are just supporting each other, which was my dream. I didn't want it to be
Mhm.
like me telling people anything. I just wanted it to be real mutual aid and it's
Yeah.
happening and like I haven't again had to put any effort into it. So these are the examples that like I remember the first time you said something in a social call about
Yeah.
effortless and I was like something's wrong with you. Like
I remember you were like, wait, you messaged me after, you're
I
like,
was like,
I'm
can you give me
unclear
some
about the effortless
examples?
part.
Yeah. It's like this is not real and can you
Yeah.
please give me several examples? And you were like, sure.
Yeah, no, I remember. And that's why I'm like, I've seen your journey and I've seen you change as a person and just evolve constantly. And I feel like right now you would be able to actually understand the whole effortless part because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I can see it. It's I'm living it. You're been
God.
able to go to trips to Maui, do
I
all
know.
these things that you would have never done before.
No, I have not been on a vacation in my adult life. Like, I haven't been on
Yeah.
vacation since 1996.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow.
And I mean, there was actually a lot of struggle involved with the vacation because I think there was still parts of me that were like pretty freaked out and there was some interpersonal stuff. But we went to Maui, we like went snorkeling and like to like spent like, you know, thousands of dollars. And I would have
Yeah.
absolutely like died if you had told I would have
Yeah.
said like hell no, never, absolutely not. And now we're like this house is built. Like this is the house. We got the certificate of occupancy while I was in Maui.
Mm-hmm.
We moved in. It's not finished. It's not perfect, but like the basement is still gross and wet and I don't know how it's going to get fixed, but I'm able to use the ideas that I learned through reality mastery around like I don't need to know how. I just
Yeah,
need to know that like it's the best case scenario right now is for that basement to be exactly as it is. And
exactly.
if it's meant to improve, then great. If not, like that's even better. And
Hmm.
there's some nervous system stuff about like the house isn't perfect. When is it going to be unpacked? Like la la la, that's still there. But
Yeah,
I'm able to be like, all right, I see you. Like you're freaking out about that. That makes sense. And like maybe it's fine. And maybe it's like always going to be okay if something doesn't go the way you want it to. Like you can
yeah,
just remind yourself, like, all right, let's see how this plays out and that's what the confirmed becoming does. It builds your confidence that like it's worth it. Whatever
yeah.
is happening is worth it.
It's worth it.
And there's no circumstance in which something going not the way you planned could not be better because you're always going to, at the very least, learn something from it.
Exactly. Like you even posted a post about my 40K lesson, right, with the house. And you were like, I would have paid this anyways to learn this lesson because you just
Yeah.
needed it in your life. And I will tell you, like, it's not that easy for so many people to do that, right? To even put a title like that, right? And not even for you, your 1.0 version would have probably never done that. And it's just insane to see like these changes with money, how you view things now, how even in the social calls, when we have the social calls, it's just like you have these such different perspectives to share to people that everyone is just like, wow, actually, I could take that, you know? And it was not like that in the beginning at all. I remember.
I was just like
It's
crying.
insane. Yeah, you were just sad, you were crying, you were just like anxious, which is normal, but I feel like that was also needed so you could see this huge change. And like actually us talking about this right now is huge because like when you joined, I remember it was just like, okay, the situation's going on with Z and all this type of stuff. Who knows if we're gonna get into the success story part of stuff, right? But you literally did it. And I want to say I'm so, so proud of you.
I
I'm
couldn't have
so,
done it
so proud of
without
you.
you for sure. I'm so grateful. Like every time any new person joins, I'm always like, go to the social calls with Hina and get an accountability partner. Like that is what makes the world of difference. I'm so grateful to you.
The last thing that I was gonna say was just any final words for people that maybe just got into the course and they don't know what to do, they're confused just like you were in the beginning, and they just don't know how to tackle it. What would you recommend to them, just as a final thing, advice for them?
Yeah. So my main advice would be go to the social calls and get an accountability partner that you meet with once a week. That would be
Yeah,
my biggest advice. I would say also take advantage of calls with you, because that's a huge resource. That's an incredible value. And which you just get to have that. That's wild. So I would say those would be my main things. And then my other thing would be to just encourage people to continue. And this is this is what I feel like I'm going to be working on for the rest of my life is just continue to challenge this idea that if something is going wrong, you are wrong. That
yeah,
is a false equation. If something is going wrong, challenge yourself to be like, this is for me. Like, this is not because I'm bad at manifesting. This is not because I'm a bad mirror and it's reflecting something bad about me. This is just path of least resistance for the universal plan. And I'm going to continually encourage myself to trust it. I'm going to go,
exactly.
okay, this morning, the water thing I needed to get, like I told you about for a parenting thing, it's like, okay, there's some resistance here. That must be what's meant to be. That must be perfect. So great. I'll say,
Yeah,
no problem. Just like everything, like decreasing importance, challenging yourself to not blame you or anyone else, to trust. And you have to kind of force yourself to trust at first, right? Because
yeah.
that's what the whole like finding confirmations
Fake it
is
till you make
for.
it.
Yes, yes. So to just continue to question that construct that like something bad means somebody's wrong, continue to try to question that because that I think is the main problem on our planet.
No, I completely agree. No, those are amazing, wise words. I feel like everyone should take that away from this call today or this interview or whatever. But thank you so much for
I love
taking
you.
the time to do this interview today. I am, again, mentioned it probably for the fourth time today. I'm so proud of you and your journey. And I hope to see you growing inside the group, crushing it as you always do, and just letting us know about everything because we're always posted. We're always posted. So thank you so much
Love
for
you.
this interview, and I'll see you later.
Okay.